What if everything you believed about your worth as a man was a lie? What if the very things you were told to do, be nice, be available, be accommodating, are the same things making you invisible, weak, and replaceable? Deep down, you felt it, that gut-level frustration. You give, you wait, you try, and yet something always feels missing. You're tired of being overlooked, tired of feeling like no matter what you do, you're never quite enough, not respected enough, not desired enough, not seen. And here's the truth you were never supposed to hear. The world is not built to empower men. It's built to use them until they either break or wake up. Everywhere you turn, you're told to suppress your strength, silence your truth, and beg for scraps of approval. You're rewarded for being passive, punished for being bold. And over time, you've begun to wonder if who you are, even at your core, is somehow wrong. You second-guess your instincts. You hold back your opinions. You shrink. You settle. You smile when you're dying inside, nod when you should walk away, and apologize just for being masculine. This isn't by accident. You've been conditioned, trained, to disconnect from your power, your hunger, your voice. Because when a man forgets who he is, he becomes easier to control. And when he becomes easy to control, he loses everything, his purpose, his edge, his fire. But that ends now, because once you start seeing the truth, there is no going back. You were not made to chase approval. You were not born to exist on your knees. You were built for presence, for clarity, for dominance, not over others, but over yourself. There is a strength inside you that you've buried beneath fear and false beliefs. It's waiting. It's always been waiting. And the moment you decide to wake it up, your life will never look the same again. People will treat you differently. Women will see you differently. Because the man who knows his worth does not beg for attention. He becomes the center of gravity. You're here because something inside you is stirring. Maybe it's anger. Maybe it's pain. Maybe it's a quiet, burning voice that says, I was made for more. And you're right. You were. But nothing will change until you decide that enough is enough. You must stop asking for permission to be great. You must stop handing your power away to people who don't respect it. If you're tired of feeling empty, tired of feeling used, tired of feeling lost, then stay, not for the views, not for the hype, but for you, for the man buried beneath years of lies. Because once you see what's been hidden from you, once you understand what you were never meant to know, you'll become something most men never get to be: free, fully alive, untouchable. Watch closely. Your future self is watching too. They don't want you to know how powerful you become the moment you stop chasing. Not just women, everyone. Because a man who stops chasing approval, validation, and attention is a man who can no longer be controlled. You become unpredictable. You stop playing the role they wrote for you. And that scares people, especially the ones who depended on your weakness to feel strong. The moment you pull your energy back, they feel it. The moment you stop explaining yourself, stop apologizing for your standards, stop bending to please, everything shifts. People begin to feel your presence instead of just hearing your words. They sense something different, something they can't manipulate, can't mold, can't move. That's the moment you begin to rise. You were taught to equate your value with how much you give, to her, to them, to everyone but yourself. You were taught that being useful is the same as being worthy. But usefulness without boundaries is servitude, and servitude without self-respect is self-destruction. You were never meant to be someone's emotional crutch. You were never meant to silence your truth just to be loved. The more you betray yourself, the more invisible you become. You disappear not because no one sees you, but because you no longer see yourself. You become a shadow of the man you were meant to be until one day you've given so much of yourself away that there's nothing left to protect. That is when you break, or you wake. The reason they don't want you to find this message is because they know what happens when a man wakes up. You start asking questions they can't answer. You stop settling for crumbs. You stop being predictable. You stop reacting. And they lose their grip. Because the truth is, a man who knows himself cannot be seduced by anything shallow. Not fake attention, not conditional love, not approval that must be earned. He sees through it all. And the second you see through it, their power over you dissolves. That's why they'd rather keep you distracted, addicted, guilty, confused. Because if you ever focus that same energy inward, on building yourself, mastering your mind, sharpening your body, owning your path, you'd become everything they fear. A man they cannot use, a man they cannot break, a man they cannot shame into silence. So the question becomes simple. Do you want to stay in a world that only accepts you when you're silent, weak, and obedient? Or do you want to step into the world that opens when you decide to become dangerous, not reckless, not violent, but dangerous in your discipline, in your calm, in your refusal to shrink ever again? You weren't born to be tolerated. You were built to be respected. And respect begins the moment you stop needing it from anyone else. Let them fear your clarity. Let them fear your silence. Because when a man no longer needs approval, he becomes unstoppable. Most men walking this earth are starving, and they don't even realize it. Not for food, not for money, but for meaning, for direction, for the fire that once burned in their chest before the world told them to put it out. You see it in their eyes, numb, lost, going through the motions, waking up to chase things they don't care about, to impress people they don't respect, in a life they never consciously chose. That's not living. That's slow death. And the worst part, they've been taught to call it success, to wear a fake smile, shake hands, be agreeable, suppress every real emotion, and die quietly inside. That's not strength. That's surrender. And it's time to stop pretending it's anything else. You were not created to be a machine for productivity. You were not designed to sacrifice your soul in exchange for acceptance. Deep within you is a force that refuses to be domesticated. It's wild, it's primal, it's unapologetic, and the longer you suppress it, the more it leaks out in toxic, self-destructive ways. Rage with no outlet, lust with no control, sadness with no voice. You numb yourself with distractions because you're disconnected from your mission. And without mission, a man crumbles. You were built for war, not against others, but against weakness, against stagnation, against the parts of you that would rather stay small than rise. Without a battle to fight, you invent enemies. Without a mountain to climb, you build prisons of comfort. That's why you feel so empty. You've been starving your spirit. The lie you've been sold is that peace comes from avoiding struggle, but real peace comes from stepping into it with purpose. Struggle without meaning is suffering. Struggle with meaning is growth. Every man you admire, every trait you wish you had, every ounce of strength, discipline, and clarity, it's all on the other side of struggle. You don't need to be saved. You need to be challenged. And that challenge starts by admitting you've been coasting, living safe, playing roles, avoiding the edge. But greatness never lives in safety. Greatness lives in risk, in honesty, in sacrifice. You must stop fearing the discomfort of growth more than the pain of regret, because regret is permanent. Discomfort is temporary. And discomfort is the birthplace of every version of you worth becoming. You already know there's more in you. You feel it. It's the reason your chest tightens when you think about your life staying the same. It's the reason your heart aches when you remember the man you were supposed to be. But this isn't the end. This is the moment you reclaim what you abandoned. The path, the hunger, the edge. You don't need more advice. You need to look in the mirror and tell yourself the truth. You've been asleep. But now, your blood is waking up. Your soul is stirring. You are not meant to blend in. You are meant to break through. So rise and starve no more. The reason you feel out of place in this world is because you were never meant to fit into it. You were meant to stand apart, to disrupt the weakness around you with your presence. But somewhere along the way, you were told to dim your light, to tone it down, to be softer, quieter, more agreeable. You were taught that your masculine energy was a threat, that your fire was too much. So you buried it. And in doing so, you buried yourself. That fire, your direction, your drive, your unapologetic confidence isn't a problem. It's the very thing that makes you a man. When you kill it, you lose your edge. You lose your attraction. You lose the force that makes women respect you, men admire you, and the world follow you. A man without polarity is a man without power. You don't have to yell to be strong. You don't have to dominate others to lead. But you must anchor into who you are without apology. That grounded presence, that internal calm that says, I know who I am and I don't flinch. That is what defines masculine polarity. Without it, you become forgettable. You become another echo in a world full of noise. Polarity is the invisible weight you carry when you walk into a room. It's the reason people either lean in or back off. And right now, too many men have lost that weight. Numbed by comfort, broken by approval seeking, erased by the pressure to please. You were not designed to be liked by everyone. You were designed to become undeniable by being exactly who you are. Stop running from your edge. Stop fearing your strength. When you show up as your full self, some people will feel uncomfortable. Let them. You're not here to fit their idea of safe. You're here to live with truth, with depth, with force. Women don't crave passivity. They may say they want kindness and softness, but what they respond to, what makes them feel alive, is presence, conviction, clarity. The man who moves with certainty, the man who doesn't need approval to speak or space to lead, the man who radiates self-trust. That kind of man doesn't just attract, he awakens. He transforms the room simply by entering it. If you've lost your edge, it's time to sharpen it. If you've diluted yourself to be accepted, it's time to reclaim the parts of you abandoned. Because when your masculine polarity returns, everything changes. You stop being ignored. You stop being manipulated. You stop being uncertain. You start commanding. You start building. You start becoming. This world doesn't need more nice guys playing small. It needs more dangerous men who are grounded in honor, focused in vision, and untouchable in spirit. When you reclaim your polarity, you reclaim your life, not by force, but by truth. And once you live in that truth, nothing can pull you back into weakness again. She doesn't test you because she hates you. She tests you because she wants to feel you, to know if your words mean anything, to see if you can stand firm when everything around you wavers. Every sigh, every push, every question cloaked in emotion. It's not to break you. It's to find out if you've already broken. She's not looking for perfection. She's watching to see if you fold, if you flinch, if your center is hollow. Because if it is, she can't trust you. Not with her body, not with her heart, not with her respect. Women crave stability even when they say they want freedom. They crave power even when they scream about equality. And by power, they don't mean control over others. They mean your ability to stay grounded when storms come. Most men fail these tests, not because they're bad men, but because they don't even realize they're being tested. They panic when she pulls away. They chase when she gets cold. They argue when she pokes. And every time they react, they reveal weakness. Not emotional weakness, but identity weakness. A man who knows who he is doesn't get pulled off center by emotional waves. He holds frame. He doesn't argue to prove a point. He doesn't beg to be understood. He doesn't lose his edge just because someone else lost theirs. He stays calm. He listens without absorbing. He leads without shouting. He walks away when respect is lost, not to punish, but to protect his energy. A woman's test is not her being cruel. It's instinct, it's nature, and it's necessary, because what she really wants is to feel safe. And safety isn't just about protection from danger. It's about knowing you won't collapse under pressure, that your confidence isn't fake, that your direction isn't fragile. She wants to feel your strength in the silence between your words. She wants to trust that you don't need her to feel whole, that you desire her, but you are not dependent on her, that you can give love without giving up your soul. She needs to feel your gravity. If she can move you too easily, she loses faith. And when faith dies, attraction dies with it. You do not need to pass every test with perfection, but you must stop fearing them. Stop reacting like a boy who needs validation. Start responding like a man who knows he brings value. The test is not the enemy. The test is the invitation to rise, to steady yourself, to choose power over panic. The moment you pass, everything changes. Respect returns. Desire reignites. Not because you forced it, but because you proved it. The test isn't about her approval. It's about your evolution. Stand tall, hold the line, become the man who doesn't just survive the test, but commands it. That's the man no one forgets. That's the man who never loses himself. Attention is not the same as approval, and approval is not the same as respect. But too many men have been trained to treat them as if they're all equal. They chase attention thinking it's love. They crave validation thinking it's loyalty. They settle for being noticed when what they really need is to be respected. But attention is cheap. It's everywhere. It costs nothing to give and means even less when it's taken back. You can make a woman laugh. You can entertain her. You can even become her habit. But if you're not respected, you'll never be chosen with depth. You'll be a moment, not a man, a distraction, not a direction. And this is the silent reason why so many men feel empty even when they're getting attention. Because their soul knows the truth. It's hollow. You were not made to be seen. You were made to stand, to lead, to command. But when you base your worth on whether she responds, texts back, compliments you, or likes your photos, you've already lost the game. You've given her the pen and let her write your value. That is the death of masculine energy. That is the death of identity. You are not here to beg for recognition. You are here to become the kind of man whose presence speaks louder than any compliment ever could. The kind of man who knows his worth without needing someone to reflect it back to him. When you confuse attention for value, you become a performer. When you crave her gaze, you lose your edge. Because now, every move you make is to be liked, not to be real. Real men don't chase attention. They build presence. Presence is what remains when the spotlight fades. It's who you are in silence. It's what people feel when you say nothing. It's the strength that doesn't need validation to exist. And ironically, that's what pulls real desire. That's what makes you unforgettable. Not the jokes, not the charm, not the desperate attempts to stand out, but the calm certainty that you don't need to be seen to feel whole, that your value isn't up for discussion, that you would rather walk alone than perform for crumbs of validation. That's the kind of man women remember. That's the kind of man other men follow. You must stop needing to be chosen. You must start choosing yourself. You must stop waiting to be noticed. You must become undeniable, not loud, but rooted, not flashy, but focused, not desperate, but deeply grounded in your own reality. Attention fades, attraction shifts, but self-respect, that is eternal. It's the anchor that keeps you firm when the world pulls at your identity. So stand in your worth without asking. Move with purpose without explanation. Let attention come or go. Let approval rise or fall, but never let either define you. Because the man who no longer needs to be seen is the man who finally becomes visible. The most dangerous prison is the one you don't even know you're in. And for most men, that prison is built from the need to be validated by women. It's subtle, it's quiet, it looks like trying harder, being nicer, staying available, doing everything right, just to be seen as worthy. But underneath it all is fear. The fear of being rejected, the fear of being alone, the fear of not being enough unless someone else says you are. This fear is what keeps men stuck in cycles of anxiety, confusion, and self-betrayal. You're not leading your life. You're reacting to hers. You're not becoming stronger. You're becoming more dependent. Every time you mold yourself to win her over, you lose a piece of yourself. And over time, what's left is a shell, a man who's forgotten who he is because he spent too long trying to be what someone else wanted. This is the trap. The psychological loop that convinces you that love is earned through performance. That worthiness is decided by how well you're accepted. That happiness is something she gives you, but no woman can give you what you refuse to give yourself. No relationship can fill the void that comes from abandoning your own path. You don't rise by being chosen. You rise by choosing self-respect over approval, by choosing discipline over comfort, by choosing solitude over self-betrayal. Because when you stop trying to be wanted, you start becoming needed, not for entertainment, not for comfort, but because your presence carries gravity. That gravity doesn't come from validation. It comes from clarity, from the unshakable decision to never let anyone outside you define your worth again. Every time you seek permission to feel strong, you lose power. Every time you wait for her response to decide how you feel about yourself, you hand over your identity. That's not love. That's emotional servitude. And that is why so many men feel drained, bitter, and confused. They've traded their soul for attention. They've sold their edge for a temporary smile. But there is nothing more magnetic than a man who refuses to beg, who knows what he brings, who gives from fullness, not from fear, who can walk away with peace because his value is not up for negotiation. You are not here to impress. You are here to express, not to earn validation, but to embody truth. The moment you stop chasing, you start attracting. The moment you stop proving, you start becoming. And when you finally break the need for external validation, you don't become cold. You become free. Free to lead, free to speak, free to move with confidence that isn't borrowed, but built. No one can trap a man who is no longer afraid to stand alone. And once you see the bars of that invisible prison, you can never go back. You either stay weak or you break free. Decide now. Your power is waiting. Attraction is not something you chase, it's something you embody. And the moment you begin chasing it, you lose it. Because chasing is rooted in lack. It says, I need you to complete me. It reveals insecurity, desperation, and self-doubt. And women can feel that energy before you even speak. They may smile, they may entertain it, but they will never respect it. Because attraction isn't based on words. It's based on presence. And presence is built from within. It's the energy of a man who knows who he is, where he's going, and what he's willing to walk away from. That energy cannot be faked. It cannot be mimicked. It cannot be copied, because it's not a tactic. It's a state of being. You were lied to. You were told to be agreeable, to never offend, to always accommodate. But that does not create attraction. That creates compliance. That creates passivity. That creates the kind of man who is tolerated, not desired. Because true attraction isn't built on comfort. It's built on polarity. The tension between masculine and feminine. That tension only exists when you stop trying to please and start standing in your truth. When you stop asking what she wants and start showing who you are. That shift changes everything. She stops testing you and starts trusting you. She stops controlling you and starts surrendering to you. But that only happens when you lead. And you can't lead if you're waiting for her permission to be powerful. Stop being afraid to take up space. Stop filtering yourself to be liked. Stop weakening your presence to appear safe. You were not born to be soft clay in someone else's hands. You were born to be a man with weight, with gravity, with unapologetic truth. When you live from that place, you don't have to chase. You draw things in. Not because you need them, but because you've become something rare, something solid in a world built on performance and pretense. You don't pull people toward you by trying harder. You do it by becoming someone who doesn't need anything outside himself to feel whole. This is what flips the script. Not charm, not tactics, not pretending to be something you're not, but authenticity with backbone, kindness with standards, presence with direction, and the willingness to walk away from anything that doesn't align with your values. That's when she sees you differently. That's when she feels safe to open, to follow, to trust. Not because you asked, but because your presence speaks louder than words ever could. You are not here to beg for desire. You are here to command it by who you become. And the more you build your frame, the less you'll need to chase what was never meant to be hunted. You'll stop asking, how do I keep her interested? And start living in a way that makes interest inevitable. Become the man she cannot forget, not by force, but by essence. You lose your throne the moment you start worshiping her. The second you place her above yourself, you create imbalance. Not just in the relationship, but in your identity. She is not the prize. You are not beneath her. And when you act like you are, everything starts to fall apart. You stop leading, you stop commanding, you start adapting, pleasing, seeking, hoping. And with every compromise made out of fear, you give away a piece of your crown. You may think it's love, or devotion, or respect. But what it really is, what she senses, is weakness, not because you care, but because you've lost your center. A man who gives up his self-respect in the name of love will always lose both. Because love without power is dependency, and dependency repels desire. You were not made to orbit her life. You were made to build your own, to live from your mission, your code, your standard. When a woman meets a man who stands rooted in who he is, she feels it. When she meets a man who sacrifices that foundation just to keep her, she feels that too. One inspires trust, the other kills it. This is not about domination. It's about alignment. When you prioritize her over your purpose, you lose both. But when you put your mission first, she either rises with you or removes herself. And if she walks, let her. Because any woman who needs you to shrink to love you was never worth keeping. The right woman doesn't want your worship. She wants your leadership. She wants to feel your direction, your groundedness, your refusal to bend for the sake of comfort. You can be loving without being submissive. You can be generous without being spineless. You can be emotionally available without becoming emotionally dependent. This is the balance most men never learn. They swing from cold and detached to needy and approval hungry. But the true man lives in the middle, centered, steady, deep. He does not need her to complete him. He does not lose himself to keep her. And because of that, she respects him more than any man who ever tried to buy her love through sacrifice. Stop apologizing for your masculinity. Stop apologizing for your standards. Stop lowering yourself to be chosen. The moment you see yourself as the king, everything changes. Not because you demand to be treated like one, but because you start acting like one. You carry yourself differently. You speak with clarity. You walk away with peace. You no longer beg. You no longer chase. You command not through volume, but through presence. And the world responds accordingly, including her, because no woman wants to lead a man. She wants to follow one who leads himself. So take your throne back. Reclaim the mindset you were born with. You do not earn your worth by worshiping anyone. You claim it by remembering who you are. Walk like it, speak like it, live like it, and never give your crown away again. A woman cannot submit to a man who cannot lead himself. And leadership does not mean control. It means certainty. It means direction. It means you have anchored yourself so deeply in who you are that nothing outside of you can shake it. Most men try to lead from ego, loud, insecure, and reactive. But true leadership comes from silence. It comes from presence, from the way you hold yourself in the face of pressure, from the way you stay calm when everything around you screams for chaos. She's not watching what you say. She's watching who you become when life gets hard. And if you collapse under discomfort, if you get defensive under challenge, if you need her approval to stay grounded, she won't feel safe. She may stay for comfort, but she will never fully surrender. Because the part of her that wants to trust you can only do so if you've proven that you trust yourself. You can't fake this. You can't rehearse it. You can't pretend to be him while still clinging to boyish insecurity. It has to be earned, in silence, in solitude, in the quiet, painful moments where no one is watching, and you choose discipline over weakness. You choose growth over comfort. You choose responsibility over blame. That's where the real man is forged. Not in how loud he talks, but in how deeply he listens to his own standards. Not in how many women want him, but in how little he needs any of them to feel powerful. Because when a man leads himself, he doesn't need to dominate anyone. His presence does the work for him. She'll feel it in the way you walk into a room, in the way you say no without fear, in the way you look her in the eyes without apology. She'll feel it in your calm, in your self-control, in your unshakable direction. She'll test it too, not because she wants to destroy it, but because she needs to feel how real it is. And every time you stay rooted, every time you lead with strength and softness combined, she melts. Because finally, she can rest. Finally, she can stop controlling. Finally, she's found something she can lean into without fear of collapse. But none of this happens until you take full ownership of your life. No more blame, no more excuses, no more waiting for someone to believe in you first. You lead, you decide, you act, not with arrogance, but with conviction. Not with force, but with focus. The man who leads himself doesn't just get attention, he commands respect. And from that respect, true connection is born. Not performance, not manipulation, real connection. Because he no longer needs it, he brings it. Build yourself into that man. Not for them, not for her, but because it's who you were always meant to be. Lead yourself first, and everything else will follow. You become unstoppable the moment you no longer fear loss. When you are no longer terrified of being left, ignored, misunderstood, or rejected, you become a man no one can control. Most men live in silent fear. They stay silent to avoid conflict. They say yes when they mean no. They tolerate disrespect to keep the peace. But all they're really doing is betraying themselves piece by piece. And that internal betrayal, it rots your power from the inside out. Because the man who fears loss will never stand fully in truth. He will always be bending, adjusting, shrinking. Not because he's weak, but because he's afraid. And fear is what kills masculinity. Not failure, not mistakes, fear. You were not made to live on your knees praying to be enough. You were not born to be a puppet to anyone's approval. The man who walks with power walks alone when needed. He walks away when boundaries are crossed. He walks tall even when misunderstood. Because he knows what he stands for. He does not need agreement to validate his direction. He does not need affection to feel valuable. He wants it, but he does not need it. And that's what separates a free man from a controlled one. Women respect men who aren't afraid to lose them. Not because they are heartless, but because they are whole. Because they don't place their worth in the hands of anyone else. You don't find your strength in comfort, you find it in confrontation. In the moment where your fear says fold and your soul says no. In the moment you feel panic rising, but you stand anyway. That's when something changes inside you. That's when you stop running and start rising. Every time you walk through fear, you become less owned by it. Every time you refuse to abandon yourself to be liked, you reinforce your own identity. And eventually, something unshakable is built. Not loud, not flashy, but deeply rooted, quietly powerful, unbreakable. And people can feel it. She can feel it. The world feels it. Nothing is more magnetic than a man who stands in truth with nothing to prove, nothing to hide, nothing to chase, just grounded, powerful presence. the kind of presence that doesn't demand attention, but commands it without effort. Because it's real, and the only way to access it is to let go of fear, let go of trying to control outcomes, let go of needing things to go your way to feel strong. True power is surrender to truth. It is the absence of fear in the presence of pressure. You've tried to play it safe, you've tried to avoid the pain of rejection, but it's cost you more than you realize. It's cost you your fire, your freedom, your edge. So now you choose, be ruled by fear, or become the man who walks through it without flinching, not because it's easy, but because you were born to. Respect isn't given to the man who needs it. It's given to the man who no longer depends on it. Because the one who needs it will bend, compromise, and perform. He'll shape himself into whatever pleases others just to feel accepted. But the one who embodies it doesn't ask, doesn't plead, doesn't adjust. He earns it silently through how he carries himself. Not through manipulation, not through image, but through alignment. His values match his actions. His words match his behavior. His boundaries match his self-worth. That's why people listen when he speaks, even when he speaks softly. That's why people follow his lead, even without being asked. And that's why a woman can't help but trust him, even when she doesn't fully understand why. Because everything about him speaks one message: I do not need your approval to be who I am. This is where your strength must come from. Not from pretending to be strong, not from overcompensating, but from becoming someone whose respect for himself outweighs his hunger for attention. You have to stop selling pieces of your soul just to feel seen. Because every time you lower your standard to keep someone in your life, you teach them that your values are negotiable. And once they learn that, they stop respecting you, not out of cruelty, but out of instinct. If you won't protect your identity, no one else will either. If you don't live with self-respect, you will never receive it from others. And this is why most men stay stuck, because they want external respect without doing the internal work. They want to be honored without becoming honorable. You must train yourself to stop chasing approval and start becoming undeniable. Undeniable in presence, undeniable in energy, undeniable in the way you walk, speak, and move through life. You do this by honoring your word, even when no one's watching. By enforcing your boundaries, even when it costs you comfort. By choosing truth over acceptance, even when it feels lonely. That kind of man is rare, and because he is rare, he is respected without having to ask. And that respect translates into everything: how you're treated, how you're remembered, how people respond to your energy without knowing why. She doesn't want your obedience. She wants your integrity. Not the kind that folds under pressure, the kind that stays rooted, even when she tests it. She'll respect the man who can love her fully without losing himself. She'll stay with the one who can remain grounded, even when emotions run high. She'll choose the man who knows who he is, not the one who needs her to tell him. And when you become that man, you stop fearing loss, because you know your value doesn't depend on who sees it. It only depends on how deeply you live it. Let them watch. Let them judge. But never again let them decide. Respect begins with you. Build it from within, and the world will follow. There is nothing more dangerous to your growth than the belief that you must wait. Wait to be ready. Wait to be chosen. Wait for the right moment. That mindset is a silent killer. It paralyzes men. It keeps them second-guessing their potential while life passes them by. You don't need to wait for permission to rise. You don't need to wait for signs, support, or guarantees, because no moment will ever feel perfect. No path will ever be fully clear. And if you keep waiting to feel fearless, you will wait until you are buried. Action isn't the reward for clarity. Action is the requirement for it. You gain confidence by doing, not by planning. You gain strength by stepping forward, not by standing still. The man who waits for ideal conditions dies with untapped potential. You are not broken. You are just idle. You are not weak. You are just asleep. And everything you want, your power, your respect, your peace, is waiting for the version of you who finally decides to move without hesitation. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to take the next step with everything you've got. Stop outsourcing your destiny to chance. Stop hoping things will fix themselves. They won't. You fix them by becoming the man who doesn't fold under uncertainty, the man who sees the void and steps into it anyway. Because that's where evolution lives. That's where greatness begins. On the other side of your resistance, your future is not built on feelings. It is built on decisions. And decisions require courage, not comfort. You will not always feel motivated. You will not always feel strong. But none of that matters if you've already decided that you're going to rise, regardless. That's what separates those who talk from those who transform. One waits to feel ready. The other creates readiness through movement. Your hesitation isn't protection. It's procrastination wearing a mask. And every time you feed it, you shrink. You teach yourself that playing small is safer than stepping up. But deep down, you know better. You know the pain of staying stuck is far greater than the discomfort of taking action. You don't need certainty. You need conviction. The fire in your gut that says, I'm done waiting. I'm done watching. I'm done wasting my life in fear. That fire is already inside you. You've just buried it under excuses and distractions, but it's still there, burning, waiting, calling you to stop overthinking and start becoming. You've seen what hesitation costs you. You've lived the consequences of holding back. Now it's time to see what happens when you don't. The power you've been seeking isn't out there. It's inside the man who moves forward before he feels ready. So move, choose, build, take the step, and let the next version of you meet you on the other side of action. No one is coming to save you. Not her, not your friends, not your family, not the world. And the sooner you accept that, the stronger you become. Because within that brutal truth is the key to your liberation. It forces you to stop waiting for rescue and start building your own foundation. Every time you look outward for a solution, you weaken your inner power. You delay the transformation that only you can bring to your life. Ownership is not about blame, it's about power. The moment you take full responsibility for everything you feel, everything you allow, and everything you tolerate, you take back control. And in a world that feeds on distraction and emotional dependency, a man who reclaims control over himself becomes untouchable. Your mind will lie to you. It will whisper that it's too late, that you're too far gone, that you've made too many mistakes. But none of that is truth. The truth is simple. Every moment you breathe is another chance to rebuild. But you have to be honest with yourself. You have to look directly at the areas where you've become soft, where you've avoided growth, where you've chosen comfort over courage, not with shame, but with clarity. Because until you confront the parts of you that are keeping you weak, you will never become the man you were born to be. You don't fix weakness by hiding from it. You fix it by facing it head on, stripping away the excuses and doing what needs to be done. That might mean walking away from the relationships that drain you. That might mean building the discipline you've been avoiding. That might mean letting go of the need to be liked. Whatever it is, you already know. You just haven't had the courage to act on it. But if you want freedom, if you want peace, if you want to command your life instead of being a victim to it, you have to act. You don't rise by thinking, you rise by doing. This is the moment where the gap between who you are and who you could be is either closed or widened. There is no neutral. You are either rising or falling. And every thought, every choice, every habit you repeat is pulling you toward one or the other. So ask yourself, are your actions aligning with the man you claim to be? Are your standards matching your desires? Are your boundaries protecting your energy, or are they just lines you erase every time fear shows up? Be ruthless with your self-audit, not because you're broken, but because you're capable of more. You are not weak. You are simply untrained. You are not lost. You are just waiting to wake up. And that wake up won't come from the outside. It comes from the decision to stop blaming, stop waiting, and start becoming. No more excuses, no more delays, no more hoping someone else will fix it. You are the solution. You are the answer. Now act like it. No one respects a man who abandons himself, not even the man himself. Deep down, when you avoid your standards, when you silence your voice, when you tolerate what breaks you, you lose something far more dangerous than love or opportunity. You lose your own self-trust. And once that cracks, everything else collapses. You can't lead if you don't trust your own decisions. You can't build if you're constantly second-guessing who you are. You can't attract peace if you're living in conflict with yourself. And that's the root of so much of the frustration, confusion, and anxiety men carry. It's not the outside world causing the chaos. It's the gap between what they know they should be doing and what they're actually doing. That gap becomes torment. Not because you aren't capable, but because you keep betraying what you know is true. You were not created to be at war with your own soul. You were built for alignment, for clarity, for power that flows from inner peace. But peace only comes when your behavior matches your values, when your life reflects the standard you speak about, When your words are backed by action, not apology. Every time you abandon yourself for approval, you trade that peace for a short burst of comfort, and it never lasts. It always comes with a cost. It always leaves a scar. And slowly, those scars become the story you tell yourself, that maybe you're not enough, that maybe this is just how it is, that maybe something's wrong with you. But nothing is wrong with you. You've just been practicing weakness in the name of fitting in. You've been rehearsing self-betrayal and calling it love. And that stops now. You want power? Then stop lying to yourself. Stop pretending you don't know what you're avoiding. Stop acting like your future isn't shaped by the choices you make today. No more soft excuses. No more playing blind. Look in the mirror and get brutally honest about who you've become. Not to shame yourself, but to free yourself, because once you see it clearly, you can burn it down. You can rebuild from truth, from strength, from standards that don't shift based on who's watching. That's where real confidence is born, not from fake positivity, but from the integrity of living in alignment with your core. She will never trust the man who lies to himself. She might use him, she might keep him, but she will never respect him. Because respect comes from depth, from the strength to confront your own darkness, from the willingness to correct yourself before demanding anything from others. And the moment you stop abandoning yourself, everything changes. Your posture changes, your tone changes, your presence becomes heavier, calmer, more focused, not because you're pretending to be strong, but because you finally are. Own your life, own your truth, and never again negotiate with the version of you that chose comfort over character. Let him die, so the real man can rise. You cannot build a powerful life while staying addicted to weakness. And weakness isn't just physical, it's emotional fragility. It's mental softness. It's spiritual numbness. It's the pattern of backing down every time things get uncomfortable. Every time you feel pain, you retreat. Every time you face resistance, you shrink. Every time you hear a hard truth, you deflect. And that constant retreat from discomfort has trained you to live small, to tolerate less than you deserve, to numb yourself with distractions and call it peace. But peace doesn't come from escaping pain. Peace comes from conquering it, from meeting the discomfort head on and choosing to grow through it rather than run from it. That's where you begin to harden, not in a way that closes you, but in a way that shapes you into someone unshakable. Discipline is the foundation of that transformation. Not the kind of discipline you fake for a few days, the kind you live with, the kind you carry into every area of your life, your habits, your time, your thoughts, your standards. Discipline is the purest form of self-respect. It's the voice that says, I care about my future more than my feelings. And that voice needs to get louder than the one that keeps seducing you into comfort. Because comfort is not your friend. It's the silent killer of men. It makes you feel safe while it drains your edge. It keeps you entertained while it robs you of fulfillment. And the longer you stay wrapped in it, the further you drift from your own power. If you want to become the man others feel when you walk into a room, you have to start with yourself when no one's watching. You have to become the man who shows up even when no one else will know. Not for applause, not for recognition, but because your standard no longer depends on mood. It's your identity. That's the level of consistency where transformation begins. That's where you go from potential to power, not in bursts of effort, but in becoming a man who does what needs to be done every single day, whether he feels like it or not. There is no version of your future that includes weakness winning. No path to greatness that allows excuses to lead. Everything you want, respect, purpose, inner peace, is on the other side of your willingness to stop giving yourself an easy way out. You don't need motivation. You need grit. You need a reason that's stronger than your excuses. And that reason starts with this. You are done letting weakness make your choices. From now on, strength leads, discipline leads, truth leads, even when it hurts, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Because the harder it is, the more it's shaping you. So step into the pain, step into the pressure, and don't stop until the man inside you finally becomes real. You were not designed to drift. You were built to dominate your direction. But drifting is easy. It's what happens when you avoid decisions, when you silence your instincts, when you go numb just to get through another day. But ease is a trap. It wraps itself around your ambition until you can't tell the difference between peace and passivity, between rest and resignation. And if you're not careful, you wake up one day and realize you've spent years chasing the illusion of comfort, while your edge, your purpose, your fire quietly died in the background. No man was born to live like that. You feel it, you know it. That tension in your chest isn't anxiety. It's the part of you that knows you were made for more, begging you to stop waiting and start rising. Direction doesn't come from overthinking. It comes from deciding. It comes from cutting through the noise and choosing who you are going to be, then living like it's non-negotiable. You don't need more time. You don't need better conditions. You need to step into the fire of your own potential and refuse to leave until something inside you shifts. The reason most men never reach their power isn't because they're incapable. It's because they never decide to. They spend their whole lives reacting instead of building, responding instead of leading. And that reaction-based life creates weakness because it places the steering wheel in everyone else's hands. A man who doesn't know where he's going will always be used by someone who does. You have to choose to lead yourself even when the path is unclear, even when fear screams in your ears, even when no one believes in your vision, especially then, because that is when leadership is real. That is when masculinity matures. When you plant your flag in the ground, not because it's easy, but because it's who you've chosen to be. You don't need guarantees. You need conviction, the unshakable knowing that says, I may not be there yet, but I am no longer available for anything less. That level of clarity becomes power, because from it your decisions sharpen, your energy shifts, your presence becomes heavier, not from noise, but from depth. You are not here to simply exist. You are here to impact, to create, to lead. And leadership starts by refusing to drift another day. No more floating through life hoping things get better. No more waiting for someone to show you how. You are the one. You are the force. You are the one who decides where this story goes next. So rise with intention, walk with direction, breathe with purpose, burn the bridge to indecision, and step fully into the version of you that stops waiting for life to happen and starts taking it with both hands. That's how kings are born, not through chance, but through choice. And that choice is yours. Now.